Straight ahead, Trump's tariffs. The president unveils multiple layers of tariffs on foreign goods, some of the biggest on the auto industry. And we speak with the owner of 2 North Texas car dealerships about how he's preparing his business and employees and the impact on you, the consumer. Courting Hollywood. Celebrities Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are lobbying lawmakers for big bucks to lure movie and TV show producers to Texas. But there are concerns. And new leadership. I go one-on-one with the new chairman of the Texas Democratic Party after losing the White House, the Senate, and House. And with 2026 around the corner, how did Democrats respond? Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope your Sunday morning is off to a good start. Lots to get to this week, and we begin with President Trump's tariffs and the potentially seismic impact it will have on the economy in the short and long term. The action has rattled the financial markets, which on Thursday led to the biggest one-day drop since the start of COVID in March of 2020. The president announced a variety of tariffs at the White House on Wednesday, saying the goal is to bring back manufacturing to the United States. The taxes paid on imported goods include the auto industry, in which there is now a 25% tariff on all imported cars and trucks, and that will also include auto parts next month. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, Sarah Jenkins reports on 2 other levels of tariffs that the president is imposing in this week's brief.
President Trump says America's trade deficit is a threat to national security and declared a national emergency in order to create the sweeping new tariffs. He placed a baseline 10% tariff on all countries that export goods to the U.S. Dozens of countries will also face reciprocal tariffs on top of that. The tariffs go into effect over the next week and will not apply to Canada or Mexico, which currently face different U.S. tariffs. Trump said the tariffs will restore American wealth, but critics say the tariffs will lead to higher costs for consumers. And U.S. businesses that export their products overseas are concerned about retaliatory tariffs.
Thank you, Sarah. Auto manufacturers and car dealers and their employees are waiting to see how all this plays out. We watched the president's announcement with Don Herring, who owns Don Herring Mitsubishi dealerships in both Irving and Plano. He's also the chairman of the North Texas Automobile Dealers Association. He has a total of about 80 employees at both locations, and we asked him for his reaction to the news.
Well, as I told you before it started, I was hoping that he would come out and announce that he'd made a deal, and it was the best trade deal in the history of deals, and the tariffs would not be necessary, and that we just keep on rolling. As you know, he came out and said there will be a 25% tariff starting tonight. So I was a little disappointed with that. He mentioned reciprocal tariffs, and I think that he's still trying to negotiate those deals with different countries. And so that will be ongoing. As far as we're concerned, Mitsubishi has a 100-day supply of cars.
And so what does that mean?
That means if we can get a trade deal between Japan and Donald Trump in the next 100 days, Mitsubishi should be able to just keep rolling without any hiccups.
And when you say they have a 100-day supply of cars, those are vehicles already in the United States?
In the United States, pre-tariff.
And so I know this only really came out a week or so ago, but have you been able to, were you trying to get more cars in here, or does it not matter because they're already here?
When we first heard about this, Mitsubishi sent us out a letter saying it could impact the MSRP of the vehicles, because that's too large of a tariff for Mitsubishi to be able to absorb. We started looking, and we've been expanding our used car operations anyway. So we are working on trying to get our used car operations to the point to where new cars will be icing on the cake. So I'm hoping that the trade agreement between the United States and Japan gets worked out in the next 100 days, and we can keep selling new cars at the same rate we are now, or even a higher rate as we can grow. But if that does not happen, we are committed to a vision of we're going to sell used cars, we're going to keep selling cars, parts, and service, and serving the community.
And so let me go back and ask you, as far as that 100-day supply of vehicles, the tariff is not going to be applied to those vehicles already shipped to the United States.
That is correct. They're already on the ground in the U.S., in port. So for the next a little over 3 months, Mitsubishi will keep doing business as normal.
So, given all that and given what you just said about looking to expand your used car business so that new cars could be icing on the cake, what does that mean in terms of sales? Where are you now as far as used car sales at your dealerships versus where you will be under this plan if the tariffs remain in place?
Used car sales right now, we sold about 40 out of this location, about 30 out of the location in Plano. So it's not necessarily doubling or tripling. It's a in this store, what is that, about a 20% increase, and then the Plano store it's a little more than that. So it's a very achievable goal to get to, and I'm confident that we can do that even if used car prices go up. And I think from what we saw at auction, and I mentioned to you earlier that my buyer who went to auction yesterday said a lot of people were paying $2,000 over book for used cars at auction. They're anticipating that if these tariffs go into place, used car values will go up because it creates more demand for used cars as the prices of the new cars are pushed up.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, because a 25% tariff, well, first of all, let's establish this fact. All of your Mitsubishis are made outside of the United States.
That's a fact.
And so if, in fact, Mitsubishi goes through this 100-day supply you spoke about, and then the vehicles after that coming into your dealership and other dealerships across the country will have that 25% tariff on it. So what will that do to prices and, as a result, to your sales?
Mitsubishi said they'd have to increase the prices. They did not tell us how much. But to give you an idea, on a $40,000 car, which is fairly common with Mitsubishi on a nice Outlander SEL, that's a $10,000 tariff. Well, they're not going to absorb $10,000. So does that $40,000 car become a $50,000 car? Does Mitsubishi absorb 1,000 of it? It becomes a $49,000 car. Either way, it should be a fairly large hit or increase on the MSRP, which will be a hit to demand on those vehicles.
But again, you don't have to worry about that right now.
Don't have to worry about that now. We're good for 100 days.
And as far as the used car business, that's why you're saying, because the new cars, if this is long term, will go up in price. That's why more people, you believe, will look at the used car.
We think there'll be increased demand on used cars, as we saw previously when there was a used car shortage. So all those text, emails, and direct mail pieces wanting to buy your car, you're going to see them again.
Good to know. And then, and then as far as employees, what has your message been to employees, and what is their level of concern about how this will impact your business and potentially them?
We've been very transparent. When we had our managers meetings last week in both this store and the Plano store, I shared the communication with Mitsubishi on what Mitsubishi was looking at so that they all knew exactly where Mitsubishi was. And I also shared our vision to continue to focus on growing that used car business so that new cars could just be the icing on the cake. And as long as the new cars are the icing on the cake, we'll be good no matter what happens. Still hoping that Donald Trump and Japan come to some terms.
And my last question to you is, if you had a chance to speak with the president, what would your message be?
Well, I think I would encourage the president to try to come to terms quickly before people are hurt, before there's actually manufacturers are laying off employees, before car dealerships are having to make hard decisions. Let's go ahead and get this deal made and get this deal finalized so that we can keep America going.
Texas is the largest exporting state in the United States by far, and one key trading partner of the Lone Star State is the European Union. We recently spoke with the EU ambassador to the United States, Jovita Nelepšienna, who talked up trade with Texas, specifically Texas Energy.
It's still very important to talk about not only about liquefied gas, which we are still buying in the huge quantities, and we will continue because our commissioner for energy just announced that we will be phasing out to zero, actually, Russian liquefied natural gas. And so we will need even more. We already spend more than 70 billion on that, and we are the biggest client of Texas for LNG, and we will do even more in a couple of years, and a lot of export facilities coming online. So this is one topic. But in general, trade is huge and growing. Over the last 5 years, we have plus 30% of growth in the trading, not only in goods, which is, of course, the big part. You are exporting more than 300 billion from Texas to EU, but as well in services. Your semiconductor industry is growing, and we are very much linked to that. Your air and space industry is very much connected to ours. Biotech is booming in Texas. And, in Europe, we have a very strong biotech sector.
Coming up later, Hollywood stars lobby state lawmakers for hundreds of millions of dollars in incentives to attract movie and TV producers to Texas. But first, the surprise for Attorney General Ken Paxton's lawyer when he found out his client won't face federal charges. When Eye on Politics returns. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Texas Democrats have elected Kendall Scudder of Dallas as their new party chairman. We asked him how Democrats are preparing for the 2026 election and how they can bounce back after big losses in November.
Look, it's a new day for the Texas Democratic Party, and we can either argue with people and tell them that they were wrong when they chose to stay home and not vote for us, or we can look in the mirror and make some adjustments and try to move forward and re-earn some trust of folks. And that's what I intend to do. So we're going to build a grassroots apparatus all across this state. There are 40 mid-sized cities in this state that have over 100,000 people in them, and we as Democrats have not been there and we've not been present. And so we're going to change that. So from Amarillo to Brownsville, from El Paso to Texarkana, we're going to be all across this state building a network and making sure that people understand that the Democratic Party is the party that's fighting for working folks.
So let me ask you about what you said before about people staying home. Why do you think that is? And does the fact that perhaps messaging was off?
I think that the reason that those folks stayed home is because they don't always see a Democratic Party that's throwing down and fighting for them. And even if you don't have the levers of power, you should get caught trying. A lot of times Democrats try a little bit too hard to be middle of the road and try to be consensus builders. But the reality is that's just not where the electorate is anymore. They want to see elected officials across this state that are throwing down and fighting for their families.
What do you mean specifically about that? What do you think the message going forward is?
To me, what the message is that every single day when a Democratic elected official gets out of bed, they're trying to think about how to make your life easier, okay? I'm the kind of guy that worked at a Dairy Queen and waited tables to put himself through Sam Houston State, okay? I'm not one of these Ivy League eggheads, okay? I'm one of these people who have every single day is struggling just like everybody else. And we want to build a party that speaks to people like that. That means that we're fighting to make sure we're raising the minimum wage. That means that we're fighting to make costs of healthcare more affordable. That means that we're fighting to improve community public schools and to keep your streets safe. That's what we as a party stand for. And that's what I believe our message will be moving forward.
2026 is around the corner. How do Democrats win against Senator Cornyn, against Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, the Attorney General, the Texas Comptroller, because all of these statewide elected officials are up, as you know?
Well, let's be real clear. There's a whole primary process that's at play, and I don't know that we're running against John Cornyn next year. I would really hate to be John Cornyn right now. He is going to have a bloody, bruising primary with Ken Paxton, one of the most overwhelmingly unpopular elected officials in the state of Texas, and I think that we're going to come out of that situation in a really good spot. Whoever the Democratic nominee is will be able to run for the United States Senate against this Republican policies that are cratering the economy. I mean, look, just today, the stock market has now plummeted again for the second consecutive day. I will remind people that Colin Allred lost in 2024 by 8 points. And across the country right now, Democrats are overperforming expectations by 11. So if you don't think that Texas is in play, then you may not understand math. The reality is Texas, whether it is Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, we're going to be fighting for everything in every part of this state, and Republicans better get ready.
At least one Democrat from North Texas is thinking about running for U.S. Senate again, and that's former Dallas Congressman Colin Allred, who you just heard about. He received a warm welcome Wednesday night in North Dallas when he appeared at a town hall meeting with Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Allred lost to Senator Ted Cruz in November by nearly 9 points, and someone in the crowd asked him if he will run again.
I'm considering running for Senate again, okay? I'm thinking about it, but it's largely because when people ask me, what should we be doing? My answer is what Cecile Richards said right before she passed, which is every damn thing you can.
No word when he will make a decision to challenge Cornyn. And the man who may challenge Cornyn in the Republican primary, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, no longer has to worry about facing federal charges. The Associated Press reports that the Biden Justice Department decided to drop the investigation into Paxton weeks before Donald Trump became president again. The FBI started investigating Paxton in 2021 for bribery and other allegations after his top lieutenants at the Attorney General's office went to them with concerns he was trying to help a campaign donor. Paxton's lawyer, Dan Cogdell, told reporters the development came as a surprise.
Well, I find out through the press that the decision not to go forward against Paxton was actually made under the Biden administration and not under the Trump administration. If there's anything surprising about the decision, it is that.
Paxton was impeached by the Texas House 2 years ago, but was cleared of any wrongdoing by the Republican majority in the Texas Senate. The Attorney General's office faces a lawsuit filed by the whistleblowers who said they were fired illegally after they went to the FBI. Up next, celebrities lobby state lawmakers for hundreds of millions of tax dollars to lure Hollywood producers to Texas. When Eye on Politics returns. Two well-known Hollywood celebrities, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, are lobbying state leaders, including Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, to lure movie and TV show producers to Texas by giving out hundreds of millions of dollars in incentives. But there are concerns about profanity and whether tax dollars should be spent at all on this.
Look, if we pass this bill in Texas, we are immediately at the bargaining table for shooting more films and television and commercials in our state, immediately.
At the Texas Capitol, actor and Texas resident Matthew McConaughey and Texas native Woody Harrelson made their pitch to state senators of both parties. Even Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was in the audience right behind them. McConaughey pushed for senators to pass SB 22, which would create a dedicated $500 million incentive program for a 2-year period through the year 2035 to attract producers to make movies, television shows, and commercials in Texas. Currently, the state provides $200 million, and McConaughey says New Mexico and Georgia provide better incentives to producers, which means to shoot a new comedy here in Texas, he and Harrelson had to make concessions.
It's a series that we both gave back 15% of our personal salaries to shoot here in Texas to keep us from having to go to Georgia.
The chairwoman of the Senate Finance Committee, Republican Joan Huffman of Houston, gave the taxpayer-backed program a raving review.
Over the life of the program, we've seen a significant economic impact on the state, over $2.5 billion in in-state spending and 189,000 Texas jobs created.
Fort Worth Mayor Maddie Parker made an appearance at the hearing to add her support.
We have seen firsthand the huge return on investment in Fort Worth alone. Since 2015, that includes $700 million in economic impact, 30,000 local jobs.
Under the program, the governor's office decides which producers and projects receive grants. Projects won't qualify if they bash Texas or include pornography. Some senators expressed concerns.
I don't find that profanity is limited in any way. And it's really more the F-bomb.
One resident criticized the use of taxpayer money on this program.
And I was raised under capitalism, not socialism, and this is a handout.
Despite some concerns, the measure passed the Texas Senate Finance Committee unanimously and now heads to the full Senate, where it will be considered and likely passed this week. The controversial school choice bill is advancing in the Texas House. Last week, the House Public Education Committee voted out the $1 billion bill and sent it to the full House by a margin of 9-6 along party lines. Under the legislation, tax dollars will be spent on sending students to private school. Many of the students accepted into the program will receive $10,000 per year if they go to an accredited school. Students with disabilities could receive up to $30,000, while homeschooled students would get $2,000. Republicans say students with disabilities and from low-income families will be prioritized, but it is a universal program, meaning everyone is eligible. The same committee approved the House school funding bill by a margin of 13-2. It would provide nearly $8 billion in new money. As for the school choice bill, Governor Greg Abbott and Speaker Dustin Burrows say they're confident it will pass because they have more than the 76 votes needed. And remember, you can watch all of the full interviews of everyone on our show today by going to our CBS News Texas YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. And that's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. And from all of us here, have a great day.